I'd like to call this meeting to order. Board of Directors, Wednesday, May the 3rd, 2023. Welcome, and as a reminder, this meeting is being recorded and will be posted to our YouTube channel at a later date. Are there any additional agenda items? Seeing none, is there any declaration of conflicts of interest or pecuniary interest? Seeing none, then I have a motion here that the minutes of the LPRCA Board of Directors meeting held April 5th, 2023 be adopted as circulated. And I have a mover and a seconder. Chris and Tom. Are there any corrections or changes that are required? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's passed. So there is no business arising for the previous minutes. Review of committee minutes, there is none. Correspondence, there is none. And the next item we have is development applications. And I believe there's 21 of them, and Leanne will speak to that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. LPRCA staff have approved 21 applications for development since the April Board of Directors meeting. The report summarizes the location and nature of each development. The map on page 16 of the agenda provides a visual of where in the watershed the approvals have been granted. This information has been provided for your information. If there's any questions, I can help answer those.
Are there any questions for Leanne as you review these applications? No questions? Okay, then I have a motion that the LPRCA Board of Directors receives a Section 28 regulations approved permits report dated May 3rd, 2023. Yes, David. Moved, okay. And second by Peter. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's passed. Thank you. So now we go to new business. And we have the general manager's report by Judy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in the report, the first item there, Mike Thomas and myself attended the AGM for Conservation Ontario. They had their elections and I listed out their new board of directors. The chair is Chris White from Grand River. He's currently the chair at Grand River. And it was actually a very good meeting. First time we were back face to face. We traveled to Toronto and we were both kind of going, oh, the drive, but actually it turned out to be good to be back. We had a lot of interaction with the other people, the other general managers and the chairs that were there. So that was a good meeting. One item that came out of the meeting that we'll be bringing forward to the board is a revised administrative bylaw. Just there's some new legislation with the Ontario Not-for-Profit Act, and then the agricultural representatives. And then there's also another Ontario Reg 400/22 and Bill 23. So there's some things that we have to tweak in our administrative bylaw, so that'll be coming back to the board at a later time. Leanne went through the permits, but as of April 25th this year, we had 41 permits versus 49 the previous year. And that seems to be a bit of a trend that the other CAs did share, that there is on one of the general managers meetings that things just aren't flowing as quickly, and we're not sure if what the issue is, but I think some of all these changes in the regulations is just slowing some of the processes up on all ends. So I think we're not that far off. So hopefully the numbers stay up compared to last year. We also have on April 6th, there was Bill 97 was another act that was released, and it amends various statutes, but We had looked at it and there's no schedule actually amending the Conservation Authorities Act, which was good news. Also with that, there's, a review of proposed policies adopted from a place to grow a provincial policy statement to form a new provincial planning instrument. So, there is a ERO posting that we'll be responding to. And its comments are due by June 6th. And then staff, Leanne would put a report together to bring to the June board meeting, highlighting all the implications for the CA. We can confirm right now that the natural hazard policies remained unchanged, but actually the natural heritage policies are not released yet. So there's still more to come on that, but we'll comment the best we can by June 6th. We had a couple events in April for our flood forecast and warning. We did start with the hydrology study. We had the kickoff meeting with Matrix Solutions. Our parks have now opened, and it's been an interesting year again recruiting campground staff. Not as bad as other years, but still not as smooth, a great smooth process. So we had at the time of writing this report, we had 365 seasonal camper applications that actually were paid for. So we're feeling we're going to achieve at least 92% for that, and that would be 413 campers. And I think as of today, we just had around 400 sites paid for. So we don't count them until we actually get the money, because there's a lot of people that still are kicking the tires. So the workshop staff, we've been busy there, just working and getting the campgrounds up to snuff. We did get the one well drilled at Waterford North that was in the capital budget, and just to improve the water capacity there. It's not online yet, but we're hoping very shortly. And then the health unit's on standby. They have to issue a directive so we can actually bring that online to actually use that for a potable water system. So that's shaping up nicely. And we did have a couple plantings with the public. The scout, Paul Gang did a scout planting in conjunction with Norfolk County, northwest of Simcoe. And on April 22nd, and on the 27th, we had another planting with some students from Glendale High School here in Tillsbury, just out on Potters Road. We had a site that the landowner agreed to let the students come out. So yeah, it's been busy and it continues to be busy, but everybody's doing a great job.
Thank you, Judy, for your report. Any questions for Judy? No questions? Okay, then I'll go to the motion. The motion that the LPRCA Board of Directors receives the General Manager report for April 2023 as information. A mover, Rainey and Stu. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Next item is the first quarter financial report, and I'll turn that over to Aaron.
Thank you. So the Q1 financial report provides a consolidated and departmental update for the board with a budget versus actual for the period up to and including March 31st. The revenues for the first quarter totaled 1.6 million with expenditures of 830,000. The revenues represented 27.4% of the expenditures, 14.9% of the annual budget. This resulted in a surplus of 764,000 for the period. Revenues are 316,000 higher and expenditures 107,000 higher than the same period in 2022. Planning revenues are down 4% to 123,000 for the period in comparison with 2022. Planning staff have processed 30 lawyer inquiries, 65 permits, 38 plan reviews, and 7 pre-cons. The forestry department has awarded 2 tenders, resulting in 248,704 revenue. The revenues are expected to be in line with budget when the final tenders are issued and awarded. The campground revenues at March 31st totaled 401,000, in comparison with 317,000 for 2022. At March 31st, 115 seasonal campers had been paid their fees, and in the same period in 2022, only 94 had paid for the same period. In 2022, we had 441 seasonal campers for the season, and the 2023 budget was based on 430 seasonal campers. As Judy mentioned, to date, at the end of the day, we have 403 seasonal campers. 403, yes. And there's still a waiting list that we're backfilling right now, so we're looking to be on budget for seasonal camping. With the seasonality of forestry and seasonal camping revenues and the receipt of grant funding, the authority is in a positive position for the quarter, up to and including March 31st, and we're expected to remain on budget for the full year. If there's any questions from the board, I'd be glad to take them.
Are there any questions? Yes, David.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, it's good to hear about the camping. Is there any particular reason why revenues are up, or has there been an increase in rates? Are they competitive, or are there more people camping because it's affordable?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So as I mentioned, as of March 31st, there's 115 paid this year and 94 last year. So there is an impact there. Yes, we did increase fees. Forestry tenders were issued earlier in the year this year. So there's a little bit of impact there. And as mentioned on the private forestry, we've received a grant through Essex Region Conservation Authority for tree planting for the 2022 season from American donors. So that's also included in that revenues for this year up to date.
And that's appreciated, but I was talking specifically on camping. It appears that camping is maybe a little more popular this year than other years. Based on the numbers, it appears that way.
Based on the numbers, we're looking to be on target or with the same as last year. There was a slight increase in fees of 3%.
Okay. That's fair.
Yes, Doug.
I'm looking at page 5 there, the Lee Brown Marsh, and I'm just wondering, I see where 21 and 22 is way down. I assume that's COVID related. Page 5, right at the top, Lee Brown Marsh. Waterfall Management Services, I guess we know it. And I'm just wondering, like, the budget this year is 151,000 and change. And then in 21 and 22, it was substantially lower. Is that because of COVID?
Well, it's also because they have curtailed some of our baiting activities.
Right, I understand, but
You got the provincial government.
I assume the hunters were not participating.
What numbers?
So
Right at the top of page 5.
You know, it's like sure.
And I guess my other question is, how do you pick out the revenue for Lee Brown Marsh in those particular years?
That's the expense.
Oh, that's expensive, yeah.
Yeah, so, just going back on the expense side, so that number is lower because, yeah, for the wages.
Sorry, so you're looking at the top end there. That's the expenses for Lee Brown Marsh.
Right,
And for the expenses, with the new regulations, we broke out the property there. And there will be, now we can use levy money for work done on our property. And then what's related to the marsh and the hunt will be coming later on in the season. You'll see the expenses come up there.
And the manager's only part-time, we had minimal hours.
yeah, so what I'm asking though is in 21 and 22, obviously it changed around because you budgeted 151,000 this year, right? The way I read it.
Yes.
Okay, so where's the revenue for 21 and 22? Where do I pull that out? Is that down at the bottom, sources of revenue?
Down at the bottom.
Right.
The user fees,
It's in there,
they
okay.
will be in there, yes.
Yeah.
So 21 and 22 were not very good, because of COVID, I assume.
For the revenues.
Yeah,
Sorry, through you, the chair, the revenues for the marsh hunt come in the fall.
well, I know that, but it should show for 21 and 22.
This is only
Sorry,
for the
so those
period.
only represent the same period up to March 31st,
Okay,
but
but
not the full year.
all right, let me ask, I see up further and it shows, you gave out one scholarship that last year. $1,000 scholarship, am I right? That's on another page, I think, back. I'm just trying to,
I'm not sure what was different.
um,
So, yeah, so under,
I'll find it for you.
it's under the communication area.
Doug, we're having Lee Brown March Committee meeting Friday afternoon.
Right,
And on the agenda is the financial statement just for the Lee Brown March.
okay,
So at our next meeting,
right,
you will see the income expenses specifically for the Lee Brown March.
okay, and that'll show 21 and 22.
No,
None,
So,
none, like revenues?
so if we can just go back to the Lee Brown, revenue. So for the year, you're right, the activity expense is 151, and basically this year the revenues is equivalent to the expenses. There's not much room in there for a surplus. So in that 151, we have the land rental of the farmland, and then the March fees are about 100 and there, we increased them slightly over last year. And then there's some geese revenue that we take. But those are the three big components for the geese that come to the area. So that's like $3,000 we expect. But the largest part there is the fees for the hunt, which are gathered. They start to come in August and September when Kim takes the bookings.
Right.
But we do have some uncertainty this year.
For the-
On knowing if we are able to actually, feed the ducks legally with the bathing permit from the federal government, so.
Okay, all I'm trying to, I just want to know
So
the revenue from the hunters.
Yes, self-sustain that operation, at the Lee Brown. So the revenue that was in the budget this year, I don't want to give you a wrong number, but
That's
it
fine, I
was
don't need it.
103,000.
That was the revenue.
The revenue target is 103,000 for this year.
Okay,
And last year, I don't have that number right in front of me, but it was approximately around 78,000, I think. We're off target
right,
because of the reduced number that came. We
okay,
still had a good, we had a lot of good support there for people coming to the marsh, but we were short our target, which was about 96,000 last year, 98,000. So we were short, but we were able to offset that with reduced wages, because we only have the manager there's working part-time.
okay, the other question I had is what do you call it, the endowment down there, that 100,000, 100 and something thousand?
Correct.
Is it showing here?
It doesn't show in here, but in the operating statements, it is, it has its own separate bank account
Right,
for the,
GICs,
right. So we currently have, that money invested in, we have, 3 GICs, I think, currently, Karen, that you put together for me, and then we have the bank account. So we were waiting to put more money into the GIC because, our bank account, we're gaining more interest than what we can get on the GIC, but now it's slightly changed, so we have started to move some money into the GICs. And our bank account is still getting 4.9%, and we're able to secure, we get a GIC at 5.25 and one at 5.75, but so, and then we had one that we had already set up for 5.9. 7.5 is the highest. So yes, we still have that money, and it's more than, it's about 125,000 now.
okay,
that we
yeah.
have.
So will we be dealing with that at the finance committee? Would that be, any of that information be available at the finance committee?
Not normally, the way, the committee, the minutes come here, but I don't know, there's not usually that much detail on the financial side, but we could cover it at the finance committee through.
Okay, thank
Do you
you.
want a separate report on that?
No, I just wanted like, try
Just
to,
on the GICs for the investments, the finance and audit committee usually, the, the investments, that we use the investment person for, we do our GICs ourselves. So,
okay,
But you are correct, Doug, the hunt did suffer under COVID,
right.
no doubt about it. Any other questions for the guest speaker?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For you to Aaron. Aaron, on page 16 of the agenda package on the second last paragraph there, you're showing expenditures 106,000 higher than the previous year. And my thought would be that our expenditures year over year would be roughly similar quarter by quarter, where revenue tends to be a little bit more seasonal. But I'm just wondering, how is it that our expenditures are 15% higher this year than last?
Mr. Chair, we had, board approved a wage review at the end of last year, which brought us in line, and then also, the cost of living adjustment of 6% would play a factor in that number being up this year.
Okay.
Any other questions for Aaron? Yes, Mike.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm looking at the capital summary to the end of March 31st here. And there's a number of projects listed. And I just wondered, there's one here, Norfolk CA hydro upgrades, 100,700 each three. Did you bring us up to speed on where that is? Where are we expended on that already, or?
So that project, we have run into some roadblocks on doing the upgrades that we wanted to, because we don't have, we met on site out there in the fall with, Hydro One from Simcoe. And wanted that someone to actually entertain a meeting with us, but the long and short of it is, it would be about $1 million to get 3-phase hydro to our laneway. So we're looking at a different model for improving that part, but it's gonna come down to a cost benefit analysis to determine the future of what we do with the Norfolk Park for the upgrades. Obviously, we would love to bring the hydro to the gate. The issue there is all the hydro lines are overhead in the park, and it needs to be upgraded, and there's still 15 amp services, so there is a lot of issues, but the biggest complaint at Norfolk is the hydro. So we're looking at that, and we're going to put a report together for the board to consider which direction we need to.
So we're looking at options, I think.
Yeah, we have to look at options and see if there's something that we could do inside the park to improve the hydro layout and the layout of the park.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions for Aaron or Judy? Seeing none. I have a motion that the LPRCA Board of Directors receives the Q1 financial report, March 31, 2023, for the period up to including March 31st, 2023 as information. I need to move in a second. Peter and Mike. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So the next item we have is the LPRCA strategic plan, 2024-2027. Aaron, you're going to speak to that?
Thanks. So the authority's 2019 to 2023 strategic plan will be expiring at the end of the calendar year. Little background, in 2019, when the current plan was developed, the process included setting up an ad hoc committee of the board, board member input, staff town hall meeting, surveys of staff, the public, partners and supporters. The process started in March of 2019, and the board of directors adopted the strategic plan in October of 2019. At a high level, our 2019 to 2023 strategic plan is broadly valid. The vision of working together to shape the future of the well-being of the watershed. The mission of LPRCA is committed to collaborating with partners, residents, and users to deliver excellent services and experiences, protect, advance, and rejuvenate the watershed, and optimize the health of the watershed and well-being of the watershed through education and best practices. It remains highly relevant today as it did 4 years ago. The 4 strategic directions will require to be updated or refreshed to the strategic plan. The list of objectives planned for 2024 to 2027 under those directions will probably be needed to be updated for the next term for 2024 to 2027. Staff is proposing that we conduct an update or a refresh to the existing plan. The process would include input from the board and staff. Staff would bring a report to the board on the progress that we've accomplished under the current plan in comparison to the objectives set in the 2019 to 2023 plan. And we'd use this as a baseline for the next plan coming forward to the board. If there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Is there any questions for Aaron? Yes, David.
Are you looking, through you, are you looking for assistance from volunteers from the board to help with the construction of the amended strategic plan, or you want to do it with staff?
Through the chair to Dave, I think that we'd like to have input, so we'll send out a survey, provide a link or an email for feedback from the board on what they think of the direction or what could be refreshed or updated. Obviously, the second page, the message from the chair from the last one would have to be updated. But I think what we're looking for under each of the directions and the vision for the organization is setting the priorities under the objectives. Did we accomplish them under the last term, and where do we want to head in the next term coming?
Right. Mr. Chairman, for the new members here, I just want to say that the prior strategic plan before the 2019 strategic plan was quite lengthy. And we put together a committee at that time, and we did bullet points right to the point and made it very effective. I thought it was very effective because everything there was there that needed to be there, and there's been very few changes. So unless you want to expand it to a much larger one like we did a few years ago, I think we should just go right ahead and amend the one that you have, keep it short and to the point. That's more direction than it is a question.
I agree. Any other questions for Aaron? Okay, I have a motion that the LPRCA Board of Directors direct staff to review the 2019-2023 strategic plan and present the board with a strategic plan refresh for the 2024-2027 period. Dave moves it and Rainey seconds it. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So we have a regulation officer and provincial regulation officer appointment. And Judy, you're going to speak to that?
Leanne's going to take that one.
Oh, okay.
Through the chair, Isabel Johnson, one of the 2 resource planners, completed level 1 provincial census officer course organized by Conservation Ontario earlier this year. The course covers basic law enforcement principles, including note-taking, serving offense notices, conducting inspections and investigations, gathering evidence, officer safety, and court proceedings. Isabel successfully completed the course, and we recommend appointing her to enforce any regulation made under Section 28 and 29 of the Conservation Authorities Act, and also the Trespass to Property Act. If there's any questions, I can answer them for you.
Leanne, is this in partner with Brandon? Because Brandon is also a provincial officer, right?
That's correct. So under Section 28 of our act that deals with permits, right now I am the only staff member who's designated.
Okay.
So Isabel would be the second staff member. And then under Section 29, which is our campground land that we own, there's 5 other staff members.
Okay, so there's a difference between 28 and 29.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, thank you. Any other questions for Leanne? Seeing none. Then I have a motion that the LPRCA Board of Directors appoint Isabel Johnson, Resource Planner, as an LPRCA Regulation Officer, Provincial Offenses Officer, for the purpose of compliance and enforcement of any regulation made under Section 28 and 29 of the Conservation Authorities Act and the Trespass to Property Act. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I need to move her in a second. Okay, sorry, Tom and Doug. Is there any further discussion? Those in favor? That's carried. You move so fast for me, I'm hard to keep up. Okay. So then the next item we have is Victoria Class Environmental Assessment, RFP, and that is Judy.
Actually, that's Leanne also.
Oh, sorry, Leanne.
That's okay.
I'm not trying to skip you.
That's okay. LPRCA staff issued a request for proposal for a consultant to conduct a class environmental assessment for the Victoria Dam. The Victoria Dam sits just east of the hamlet of Victoria in Norfolk County on Youngs Creek. The dam was originally constructed between 1805 and 1810. The dam was rebuilt a number of times due to failure and deterioration. In 1964, the Pacific Region Conservation Authority commissioned the dam to be rebuilt at its present location. The structure is experiencing noticeable deterioration, concrete falling, and exposed steel reinforcement have been observed on the abutments, supports, and wing walls. ACOM completed a dam safety review in 2014, 2015, and the assessment concluded that the dam has an overall high hazard potential during flood conditions and with respect to natural heritage and environmental losses. The Class EA will make recommendations as to which activity, whether or not be repaired, decommissioned, or replaced, is most preferable based on a series of evaluation criteria. LPRCA staff have applied to the Water and Erosion Control Infrastructure Program for funding for 50% of the total cost of this project. I have heard that our application is sitting fairly well. We anticipate receiving funding. However, M&R is still going through their internal processes. LPRCA staff issued the RFP on March 21st, and 4 proposals were received by the April 11th deadline. Proposals were reviewed and evaluated independently by an assessment team of 3 staff members on the quality of the proposal, the experience of the consulting team, the approach to the study, the cost, and the schedule. 3 of the 4 proposals met the RFP requirements, and the proposals are listed on page 39 of the agenda package. Based on the results of the independent evaluations, staff recommend that the proposal submitted by Matrix Solutions be accepted at a cost of $138,450, excluding HFT. This proposal ranked the highest by the assessment team. The approved LPRCA capital budget includes funding for this project of $150,000, assuming WECI will cover 50% of the funds up to $75,000. And LPRCA's matching funds were approved through the municipal general levy. The proposal from Matrix is within budget, and staff recommend we proceed with retaining Matrix Solutions for the Class EA for the Victoria Dam if staff are successful with securing funding from the WECI program. If there's any questions, I can answer them.
Yes, Mr. Stewart.
Excellent. Through you, Leanne, and maybe this is confidential because of the bidding process, but I'm just curious, how close in score was the second one, or the one that was awarded? Or is confidential, just looking and saying, confidential?
I don't have the scores.
I don't have the scores in front of me.
Don't need that now, I'm just curious.
Okay.
It was close and.
They all 3 proposals were good. Staff preferred the approach that Matrix was taking. There were some factors included, in-person public consultation centers versus virtual ones, attendance to board meetings in person versus virtual, a more local team, They have a great understanding of some of the dynamics that go into these type of assessments. A lot of dams, especially in this region, I find the local residents are very involved. They have attachment to it. There's lots of pros and cons to each proposal. So they've highlighted their experience with dealing with these type of projects, and it was just a good proposal they put together.
Yes, Doug. Oh, Stuart, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's great. I appreciate it. And just maybe, and I don't know if it's, I mean, we all get sick of writing reports. I'm sure you guys do. But maybe if there's a little bit more information in there, then people like me wouldn't ask the question like that, because it makes sense then why we would go to those folks as opposed to virtual, or they're not as accommodating.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I remember going on the tour there a few years ago. Bulk of that dam is an earth dam, is it not? Am I correct? The structure is very small.
Through the chair, the structure is more or less completely contained within the road
Right.
there.
Earth.
Yeah.
And road.
Yeah,
Is it empty in the Young's Creek?
yes, it is on him.
Okay, and I know where it is.
Any other questions for Leanne? Yes, Robert.
Just a comment, Mr. Chairman, it's always been my experience when you don't take the lowest tender, you really have to be prepared to defend why you don't. And I understand there's confidentiality associated with that, and I appreciate the explanation. I'm just concerned that when you don't take the lowest tender, you have to be very careful in how to explain that. So if staff is comfortable in their decision and can defend it to the three applicants, I'll call them, then I can support the recommendation. But just a caution, I've seen it many times where if you don't take the lowest tender, the company that submits the lowest tender can make an issue of it.
Right.
And, hopefully we can
Good point, Robert.
get through that.
Thank you.
Anybody, you want to comment to that?
I think,
Yeah, so I think through doing it as a request for proposal, it's heavily weighted on the evaluation, and cost is one of them. But I understand it very well with that. I appreciate it.
and I think we also do have the disclaimer, but like Robert said, it's still, you have to be able to defend it. And I think through the evaluation, I think we could defend our position. So people might not like it, but I think it's defendable.
Yes, Robert.
And Leanne makes a good point. There is a difference between a strict tender and a request for proposal. And if there's a rationale, then that's easier to defend.
Any other questions for Leanne? Seeing none, I'll call. I have a motion here that the LPRCA Board of Directors approve retaining Matrix Solutions Incorporated for engineering services to complete a Class EA for remedial flood and erosion control projects. Excuse me. For the Victoria Dam at a cost of $138,450 exclusive of HST, plus $960 per additional meeting if required. Any mover and seconder? Chris? And Doug? Is there any further discussion? Sorry, Chris.
One more question. That dam had 25 years ago when I was on the board. Have they done any upgrades on the years I've missed or?
I have, yeah, we did one thing, we didn't have to. And when we put the, membrane. Okay.
I was out there
From the screen.
a couple of years ago. There's still some of the tall grass prairie we planted 25 years ago to hold the bank. There's still a few clumps of that left, so.
My understanding is hasn't been any significant works done in the long term to that dam. There might be some minor stuff that has been completed. down at operating level, your operating level, but to my knowledge, there hasn't been any significant repairs completed.
Yeah, I think there was some, work done with, a membrane at the stop log level, so that was just done, but more preventative maintenance. There's seepage, I think, in there, so we did that at, I think it was Victoria and Teeterville. I know Teeterville for sure, and I'm thinking Victoria was the other day. So it was before the. So, yeah, this is definitely an interesting challenge and will be, you know, we reached out to Norfolk County because as we get into the ZA and then the decision point, because there is one house after the dam, and there's no access for that house other than that one road going over the dam. So there's a lot of, it's just one issue with that area, but there's a lot going on in that area around that dam with the road being on the dam. So we've linked into the engineering
Back there,
division, so.
one house right by the dam and there's another one mile down the road.
That's the one that's isolated.
Do we have a mover and second, right? Is there any further discussion? Okay, I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. So the next item on the agenda is a motion that the LPRCA Board of Directors does now enter into closed session to discuss personal matters about an identifiable individual, including employees of the authority. That's Rainey and any further discussion? Those in favor? You're now in closed session. As we now have moved out of closed session, the next item is that this meeting is now adjourned.